Okay. I know. Well, you know, every hearing room has a little bit different system for the buttons, but at any rate, I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that we take roll.
Buchanan.
Here.
Buchanan here. Olson.
Here.
Olson here. Chavez.
Here.
Chavez here. Gonzalez. Gonzalez here. Nazarian.
Present.
Nazarian here. Weber.
Here.
Weber here. Williams. Williams here.
Wonderful. We'll try and have an efficient meeting, and hopefully we'll all be here, and we won't have to add on. So we have 9 measures on the file. We have 2 bills that have been pulled, AB 1216 and AB 1221. We have 2 bills that are on consent, AB 135 and AB 1264. And we have 2 bills that are vote only, AB 815 and AB 1279. And then we have 3 bills that are scheduled to be heard. So since...
The consent calendar.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent and a second. Could we take roll?
Buchanan.
Aye.
Buchanan, aye. Olson.
Aye.
Olson, aye. Chavez.
Oh, no, okay.
Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Nazarian.
Yes.
Nazarian, aye. Weber.
Aye.
Weber, aye. Williams.
Aye.
Williams, aye.
And could we take the 2 vote-only items? AB 815. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, the motion is going to be due past appropriations. Is there a second? I'll wait. Why don't we withdraw that, and I'll wait until...
Courtesy second.
Okay, courtesy second. Thank you. We have a motion and we have a second. Could we take roll? The chair's recommendation is opposed.
Buchanan.
No.
Buchanan, no. Olson.
Aye.
Olson, aye. Chavez. Gonzalez.
No.
Gonzalez, no. Nazarian.
No.
Nazarian, no. Weber.
No.
Weber, no. Williams.
No.
Williams, no.
And with your consent, could we take, do you want to wait on the other one? That's fine. We'll take 1279 after. So we have 3 bills for hearing. So Member Cooley, I think that this is signed in order, correct? So Cooley's first. It's AB 646, item number 2.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. AB 646 is a district bill. It comes out of, we hear often here in the Valley, we have struggled to climb out of this recession. California is slowly improving our numbers, but there's a need to grow jobs all around the state. This bill comes out of a major collaborative outlook here in the Sacramento region, which is more than a single county, looking at how do we make sure that kids, as they move through the educational system, are getting ready for the jobs that are out there. It proposes a study with the State Department of Education looking at how P through 20 councils can shed light on how to strengthen the educational enterprise so that as kids are graduating, they're finding jobs. This will be a very timely study because we are now 6 years into this recession where we have college students graduating without good jobs for them. This is just an effort to get all the interested parties in the job equation focused on, are we doing the very best for our kids? Anyway, I'm honored today to have David Butler, who brought this to me on behalf of my regional business community and educators, and Deborah Betancourt, who is the superintendent of my son's school district, the Folsom Cordova School District. I have worked with staff. There's an amendment that we will take as we move on to the next committee, and so I'm signed off on that. But I'll just stop right there and invite my witnesses to speak, and they do have other items they want to get to, and we'll take questions.
Thank you very much. Debbie Betancourt, Superintendent, Folsom Cordova School Districts. This bill is sponsored by NextEd, NextEd is an employer, an educational partnership, and effectively serves as the P20 Council for a 6-county Sacramento region. The board includes employers from various industry sectors and educational leaders from over 20 K-12 districts, all 3 of our community college systems in our region, as well as public and private universities. I have served as a member of the board for the last 5 years, as did the prior superintendent of Folsom Cordova. One of the main objectives of our P20 Council is to ensure that local school districts work in collaboration with our post-secondary partners to provide engaging curriculum and seamless career and college pathways for our students to succeed in school, college, and the workplace. This work does not come naturally to us as educators. We all compete for funding and for business partnerships, and we respond to the immediate demands of our own local constituencies. A P20 Council provides educational leaders with a platform, a broader platform, to make sure that our curriculum and our programs are preparing students to be successful in the careers of their choice in a very competitive economy that's related to the economic drivers of that region. Currently, participation in our P20 Council is voluntary, and our coalition is often very fragile. We believe the state of California and the economic regions around the state would benefit from affirming the role of regional P20 councils and encouraging local districts to actively cooperate and collaborate at a regional level. We believe the study authorized by AB 646 will provide you with that information. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Butler, NextEd.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Dave Butler. I serve as CEO of NextEd, which is the education workforce affiliate of the Sacramento Metro Chamber, which is a regional chamber of commerce, and we effectively serve as the regional P20 Council for the Sacramento region. And just real quickly, just for context, P20 is supposed to reflect the full spectrum of education from preschool to grad school, and they're recognized entities around the country that work either at the state or regional level to truly align a region or a state's educational assets to advance their economic objectives. We know that education is key to the economic success of our students, and we also know that it's key to the economic success of our region. It's increasingly recognized that regions are the units of economic competition, and funding and policy from the state and the federal level increasingly encourages this type of collaboration across districts and in partnership with post-secondary. The $250 million California Pathway Trust approved in last year's budget is an example of that type of work. So we think that this is a valuable organizational structure, and we're hoping that this study bill will provide you all with the information that you need to make an informed decision when the time comes.
Thank you. Are there witnesses in support?
Yolanda Benson, representing the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, representing the API business community, making up about 15% of the total businesses in California, with over 600,000 API businesses. It's an important, we liked the bill before it was even amended, but the feasibility study, we believe, will go a long way in providing exactly what has been discussed by Dave Butler and others of the importance of regional collaboration, and we believe this helps with workforce development and workforce training in the future of California.
Right.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Are there any questions from members here? Move approval. Thank you.
I'll second. I just wanted to say I had an opportunity to attend a NextEd event last year, and I was very impressed by what's going on with the P20 councils and the collaboration between our various education communities and business communities. So kudos to what you're doing. I hope we see it expand. I'd love to see more than a study bill here. I'm ready for that next step, but I think it's a first step, and happy to support it today. But keep up the good work, and I hope it becomes a model for other communities.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? I want to thank you for the bill. I also
Well, I thank you for your
acknowledge. I think staff
collaboration
did an excellent job
Excellent
on
staff
the
work.
analysis, because, as you do know, we do have many P16 and successful P16 and P20 councils throughout the state, and even the report done by NextEd certainly recognizes that these have to be they're going to be successful, they have to be uniquely designed to meet regional needs, that there is no one-size-fits-all, because a state like California is a big state and the regions vary, and the needs vary throughout the state. It also points out that we did have a study done that was completed in 2008.
2008, correct.
And having said that, I don't, it's always good to have data and have that inform decisions. And so the amendment the authors agreed to take is that this bill is subject upon appropriation in the budget. And the reason we recommended that was because the Department of Ed's budget is rather limited, and it's involved right now in implementing LCFF, Common Core, Smarter Balance, has some huge initiatives that it's taking on. So our belief was that we shouldn't be taking resources away from those initiatives, but it should be based on a new funding source. And I want to just thank you for being willing to take the amendment and for the work you're going to do in trying to secure that.
Yeah, well, I think, and as I said, I thought that was they do have their hands full. They need to work on things. I think the issue here, we're talking about the local business community, but this is really about strengthening the conversation between the Department of Education, GoBiz, the Office of Business Development, the President of the UC, the Chancellor of the State University, the Chancellor of the Community Colleges, EDD, the Workforce Investment Board. It's really, this recession, whose onset was hitting just as the last study was done, has been so deep and profound in its impact. It gives us a chance to get interested parties together and say, looking at these entities of state government, how can we kind of strengthen our capacity to give good deliverables to kids so they're not in this cohort, they're graduating in search of jobs, because we know that sets them back their whole life. If they can't get a job when they graduate, it's a grievous problem.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to pursuing that conversation as an advocate.
Wonderful. Can I take that as your close?
That is my close. I request
We
that I
have
vote. I thank you
a
very much.
motion and a second. Could we please take roll?
Buchanan.
Aye.
Buchanan, I. Olson.
Aye.
Olson, I. Chavez. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, I. Nazarian.
Yes.
Nazarian, I. Weber. Weber, I. Williams.
Your bill's out. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
productive afternoon to you. Thank you.
And the next bill we have on file is is AB 682, file item 4, Calderon.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and committee members, for your time. Good afternoon. I want to start by accepting the amendments and the analysis as authors' amendments. AB 682 will prevent the purchase of chicken or turkey to be sold or served in public school facilities or state-owned or leased buildings for food concessions, cafeterias, or vending operations that has been plumbed. The practice of plumping is the injection of salt water, chicken stock, seaweed extract, or some combination into chicken or turkey. Plumping not only increases the weight of the poultry, but can also increase the sodium content by up to 500%. A non-plumped chicken contains about 45 to 70 milligrams of sodium per 4-ounce serving, whereas plump chickens can contain up to 400 milligrams of sodium. In a state where more than 6 million adults are obese and 1 in 3 children ages 10 to 17 are overweight or obese, we should as a state be offering healthy food options in our schools, state hospitals, and other state workplaces. The state of California spends far too much energy and resources combating the effects of unhealthy diets to ignore the opportunity to provide this natural healthy product. In January 2012, the Department of Agriculture published nutrition standards in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast Programs Final Rule. In order to align school lunch and breakfast programs with the dietary guidelines for Americans, part of the rules and regulations address sodium intake and now requires schools to meet 3 sodium reduction targets in the next 10 years. By ensuring that our schools are purchasing fresh, natural poultry that has not been plumped full of increased sodium, these sodium reduction targets will be easier to meet. I am aware of the late opposition from the California School Nutrition Association, and my office has met with them and will begin to continue to work with them to address their concerns, and I will continue to work with them as we move along in this process, along with all those who have concerns with the issue. With me today, I have Bill Matos with the California Poultry Federation, and thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bill Mattis, and I'm president of the California Poultry Federation, and this is a big issue for us. We don't believe that fresh chicken that's labeled fresh should be pumped up with any type of ingredients, and we do have a rule coming through USDA right now that we think is going to be published soon, for the simple reason that, you know, the Assemblyman has explained to you now that you're paying for water, and consumers don't really know when they pick up a package of fresh chicken that it has been plumped unless they read the very fine line underneath it. And so we're working on that in Washington to change the labeling. We do support this legislation, and we have talked to USDA, and we believe they can provide the fresh product, we're talking about fresh product now, to the schools without having it enhanced.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Erin Evans-Feudum with the California School Nutrition Association. As Assemblymember Calderon suggested, we do have an opposed unless amended position on this bill, but we have met with the author's staff, and we are happy to continue working with them. Our major concern is that this bill could prohibit poultry that is given to schools by the USDA Foods Program. USDA provides much of the food that is used in our school meals, and it's an allowance based on the number of meals provided by the schools. This food comes from all over the country, and our schools have no control over what is sent to them and by whom. So if USDA poultry is prohibited, then the cost to districts could be enormous to replace this source of food. USDA does plan to implement new regulations, as you've heard mentioned, and it is our hope that these new requirements might also address this issue. We're happy to continue working with Assemblymember Calderon and his office. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support or opposition? Are there any questions? No different. Okay.
I'll second.
Second.
And I'll just say that I think that we should be investing in nutrition in our schools. Sometimes that does take money. I think, though, our school cafeterias are sort of an unexplored place for potential. I have a school in my district, Peabody, that actually serves meals to the surrounding community as well as their own grade school kids, you know, at very cheap prices, but that funds their higher nutritional content meals for their students. And it's a great place to get a $4 lunch, and it's a great place to have kids going to school and getting good nutrition.
Any other? Some member?
I was, having served on school boards and doing knowing a little bit about how schools fund their lunch programs, which is always a very unusual relationships because most of the time they're self-funded. They're not out of the school's budget. And so when you change the reality of funding for it, it has and generally has a very adverse effect on the program itself in terms of if they have to start buying food, the cost for lunch goes up, the ability to offer lunches becomes more difficult. I'm just curious as why, if the feds are moving in a direction that is comparable to this, we haven't aligned it with the Fed regulations and the timeline of the Feds so that our schools aren't put into a position where they're going to have to all of a sudden not be able to use poultry in our schools because of the Feds may not meet our standards that we are going to set in terms of school lunches and poultry. So I think it is a great concern. I mean, not that anyone argues with this reality, but knowing how we lunches are funded in the state of California. For us to put additional regulations on it actually costs schools more money than they would probably have to meet those needs. And so I'm just curious as to why we didn't attempt to align ourselves more with what the feds were doing so that schools would not be in a position of not using that. Someone also raised the issue that if we put ourselves in a position where we're not using the poultry, then we're basically dealing mostly with beef and pork, which is also sometimes not a part of many people's meals. Don't eat beef and pork. They eat chicken, but they don't eat beef and pork. So that becomes another dilemma in our school lunch program. So I'm just curious as to why we have not aligned ourselves with the federal timeline for the reduction in sodium in our chickens. Is there a reason why we didn't do that?
The actual new regulations coming out of the USDA are actually dealing with retail stores, not with schools. And they are coming out with a labeling that says when you enhance the chicken, the label has to be as big as the name of the chicken, meaning the enhanced label will be huge, which is what we think it should be so people know what they're buying. And as far as we have worked with USDA as well. They do provide fresh chicken. Most of the fresh chicken that they do offer is not enhanced. So I don't really think that the schools will be paying more for this chicken. I think it is out there already offered by the different companies throughout the United States who offer it. And I think the children who brought this up at the school district in LA brought this legislation forward, were very concerned about it, and that's when they called us to come forward and support the legislation. And we think that it can be done, and we can work through this as we go to the next hearing if we want to find that information. But
you think it can be done, but you're not sure if it can?
Well, I know that there's chicken offered to schools that isn't plumbed.
By the feds?
Yes.
And so we haven't asked districts how much this is going to cost them. We don't, I guess it's just an unknown factor if we create this rule.
Well, we have actually talked to the school districts in Los Angeles and the areas, and we don't have opposition from them, from the school districts. We don't.
Only one district?
Well, the districts down in that area, and I've talked to our districts up in Northern California as well, but they know the bill's out and there hasn't been any opposition.
Okay.
And when we did craft this legislation, we did have the federal regulations coming down that we had to reduce the amount of sodium in child's diets in mind, and this was kind of, in our thinking, it was helping us reach that goal, at least here in the state of California. And I understand it's money and it's an investment, and that's something that I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about it as this bill moves on, hopefully to appropriations. But at the end of the day, we have to decide what our bottom line is and what our standard is going to be, and what we will allow our kids to intake and what we won't allow them to intake. And at some point in time, we have to say, look, there's a proper investment that we need to make. Health is extremely important for the next generation. Looking at the numbers with not just obese and overweight people, but also those numbers within children, these are one of those things where it's worth taking the time to vet and figure out whether or not this is something that we can do.
Okay. So, Member Chavez.
Oh, that's okay. My question was answered by an earlier question. Just want to thank you for bringing it up. I think it is important to worry about what our children are eating. Most recently, chicken surpassed beef, I guess, in the United States as far as consumption. My only concern was the cost, because I'd hate to think that, having been involved in school education also, I know a lot of the food comes from USDA, and I'd hate to see that cut off. I remember as a young kid working in an elementary school as a little kid helper. The first time I ever saw butter was at the school. We didn't have butter at our house, but it was interesting, so it's an important thing to see. So.
Any other questions? I supported this bill in Accountability Committee, and we still have a support recommendation as amended, and you've agreed to take the amendments. The opposition came in late in terms of bringing this issue to our attention, because I do share that concern with Assemblymember Weber. It's important that children eat healthy food, but it's also important for some children where these are their only meals for the day that they have food to eat. And I don't think your intent was ever to create a situation where schools couldn't take advantage of free food that's given to them by the USDA. So it's clear to me that the two of you have had a conversation and you're willing to keep working on it. And with that commitment, because I do think you can come to agreement there, I still have a support recommendation on this bill. So I don't know if you want to add anything to close, or if...
Yeah, and as Mr. Mattis was saying, this bill was brought to me by a couple students while I was a candidate in the LA area who sat down with me, they're 12 years old, and said, look, we want to do something, we want to propose a piece of legislation that makes our schools healthier, and this is, something that we came upon, and this is something that we feel is right.
And it's the sodium issue, it's the fact that why should we be using public dollars to pay for water that's added to chicken? I mean, we want to pay for...
Well, thank you, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
All right. Thank you. We take roll.
Buchanan.
Aye.
Buchanan, I. Olson.
Aye.
Olson, I. Chavez.
Aye.
Chavez, I. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Gonzalez, I. Nazarian.
Yes.
Nazarian, I. Weber.
Aye.
Weber, I. Williams.
Aye.
Williams, I.
Your vote's out. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And, right, the motion was do pass as amended to appropriation, do pass to Appropriations Committee.